Classroom of the Elite Year 2 Volume 5. There is a lot to unpack in this volume, a whole freaking lot. You know what, let me just start off with the juicy part, cause that's what I want to talk about the most. So you know that a special exam was coming up. The teacher's reaction was enough to warrant that a truly different ruthless exam was coming, which they had also taken in the past. And this time Chabashira sensei was sure tense. She suddenly turned to the students one day and said that tomorrow is the exam, but don't worry cause it is a simple one. And yes, the procedure was simple. This time's special exam was a basic yes or no, voting one. The school would offer you a proposition and the class had to vote for it or against it, unanimously. That's important, everyone should agree, there should not even be one vote that is different from the majority, only then can the class move forward onto the next task. 5 such tasks were offered by the school. Like where would you like to go on a field trip, and everyone had to collectively decide and vote for one option. If you completed the 5 tasks offered by the school in the 5-hour time period you would win 50 points, if you can't do that you would lose 300 points. The penalty is way more than the reward in this exam. So let's start off with our dear class. Objective: complete 5 MCQs. Reward: 50 points. And they were off to a good start. Horikita had decided to lead the class. The first few questions were very easy, like the field trip one. There was one interesting question, where it ended with Horikita getting a protection point. My goodness, her classmates have sure come a long way to support her. I do sure hope she doesn't turn out to be a stupid stuck-up leader. I am sure that won't happen, right? But there are still a few steps to go before that. So the last question is here. A choice. You either eliminate one of your classmates and get 100 points in return, or you don't be an asshole who wants to expel one of his classmates and then go on a date, or just chill. Easy choice, right? I mean, you don't want a repeat of what happened with Yamaguchi. But no, the vote wasn't unanimous on this decision. One vote and only one vote persistently voted in favor of expelling a student. Okay, correction on that, Kuenji opposed. But it was just cause he wanted some points and all. He just wanted some extra pocket money from his Horikita mama. His whole deal with Horikita was that, yeah, I will stop voting for the expulsion and if nobody gets expelled because of my vote then obviously I need some money for that. Now that I think about it, he didn't end up getting that amount, since. Spoiler alert, someone was expelled. Cause Kushida was dead set on getting Horikita and Ayonkoji expelled. Something that was fueled by Yagami's threat to her. You know, the White Room student that has been blackmailing her since the start of the Year 2 volumes. So long story short, Kushida voted to expel someone, so she chose to vote in favor of the task. Anonymously, of course. 16 rounds later, when Horikita, despite knowing that Kushida was the only student who would persist in voting in favor of expelling the student, remained completely silent. And then the class decided that yeah, they were gonna vote someone out. They reached that decision, by Ayano God himself talking about rationality behind it, since else they would just run out of time and lose 300 points, and also lose the 50 points that they would have won elsewise. And then Kushida cried some crocodile tears and blamed Ayonkoji and Horikita, saying that they should take responsibility for their decision. I am shocked how she didn't choke on her hypocrisy. I know I am speeding this along a lot, but it is because I want to talk about the crux of the matter with this volume. It was Kushida versus Ayonkoji. A popular kawaii girl versus a shady loner who had got a Gyaru girlfriend out of nowhere. Ayonkoji was definitely in a losing position, but he was a Yano god. And while this was happening, Horikita didn't mention Kushida's name. Nope, she just stood silently and didn't do jack shit. But Ayonkoji made his case. A promising case. Remember how Ayonkoji had struck up a deal with Kushida, where he gave her half his points every month? Well, Ayonkoji used that as his evidence. While the whole class simped hard for Kushida and were positively mad about Ayonkoji daring to talk shit about their goddess. Ayonkoji talked about everything. Her past, her sighting with Raiwing, and her deal. He talked about everything bad that she had ever done. And most importantly, he managed to provoke Kushida. See, it didn't matter that Ayonkoji had a recording of Kushida, making a deal with him regarding the private points. The important thing was that when Kushida got into an argument with Ayonkoji, he had a definite upper hand. While Ayonkoji resolutely exposed her, Kushida grew angry. And it turned into a blame game. And Kushida first grabbed him by the collar and then used the whole decade-old threat about the fingerprint on the uniform breast thingy. And thankfully this time Ayonkoji properly argued it, saying, "Bitch, it's been a year and a half, those fingerprints aren't gonna preserve themselves." So she had jack shit. And let's just say Kushida lost her cool. She did what she had done before in her middle school, she started exposing other people's past. A messy affair for sure, but at that moment Kushida was for sure a candidate for expulsion. Until the girl who had said nothing until now decided that she was gonna intervene. And I must say she did that in the most stupid fashion. See, Kushida was exposing Shinohara for her dirty secret, so Shinohara was angry. Then Horikita intervened and said that she was gonna support Kushida. And I have a lot to say about that, but before that let's just look at how she reasoned her decision to the class. So the class was angry at having their secrets exposed, and when Horikita sided with Kushida, and the classmates asked her why she is siding with this bitch, Horikita said that Kushida is not at fault. Yes, she said. Why did you tell her about the dirty secrets then? She literally said that into that. I just have to say, excuse me bitch victim blaming much. That's equivalent to me telling my trusted friend that my dad is an alcoholic and him telling the whole class about that, and when I get angry with that, a chick blames me for telling him that secret. That doesn't make sense. That's what friends are for, you confide in them. And obviously, the people who told Kushida that secret confided in her. As a trusted friend. And before that, I would like to clear up that the secret alcoholic dad story is not true. That was never a secret, to begin with. But focusing back on the light novel. That's literally how Horikita convinced the students not to vote for Kushida, who had just been exposed as a two-faced sociopath. She called her, too useful to throw away, that she has a special talent that nobody has. She decided that she was not gonna expel her, cause yes she was too talented, so let's just expel another student who has nothing to do with this, whose only fault is being dumb. And that ended up being Sakura Airi. And you know what, let's break that down. The usefulness of the character named Kushida. Putting aside her sociopathic tendencies, she gets good grades. Not the top 1, but somewhere around the top 10, at least. Continuing on, she has good academic ability, good leadership ability. All of which she has never really used. She has always been neutral, taken a back seat on all the special exams. The only time, in fact, she has ever actually taken an active part in the special exam is when it has come to expel Horikita and Ayano Koji, and none of those actions have ever benefited the class. Yes, she is 100% better than someone like Sakura. Ignoring her being a sociopath, that is obvious. So yeah, it's obvious that she would be able to produce good enough results. But frankly, I don't see that somehow warranting Horikita placing so much importance on her. Cause you have to agree, Horikita treats Kushida like she can instantly turn Class D into Class A. She even once placed her above Ayonko-ji. Ayonko-ji, the guy that is the only reason that the class has more than 0 points, Horikita places Kushida more important than him. And I don't see any reason for that. But then you might argue, what about her special ability, her oh so powerful and special ability to bring people together? To get people to trust her. That is the ability that Horikita values the most, right? So just tell me what use is that ability now? Now that it has been established that she is a two-faced person, will the class still trust Kushida? Hell no, all that trust has been broken, there is no way that Kushida can even have a say in the class anymore. So the special ability that Horikita values so much is useless now. Completely useless. I am not saying that it is regrettable that Ari Sakura was expelled, cause let's be honest, that was a good plot twist. I couldn't see her character getting some awesome development, and that was a nice emotional end to her character. But I do sympathize with her and Haruka. I sympathize with them very much so, and I want to see Horikita knock down a peg or two. It has to happen. I cannot stand if she goes on to lead the class after this, cause the choice itself is understandable, but like Ayonko-ji once said to Harada, she should have done something about that. She was the leader and because of her decisions, a totally innocent student ended up getting expelled. Competent or not that matters later, but innocent she was. In a way, that whole mess was a personal matter of Horikita and Kushida, and despite the continuous advice of Ayonko-ji, Horikita failed to resolve that mess. Even now Horikita hasn't resolved the mess. I don't understand how she is so weak against Kushida. Maybe they are trying to mirror the relationship between Chabashira and Hoshinomiya, onto Horikita and Kushida, but honestly, I wouldn't like that. This was a great plot point, like I said before, don't get me wrong there. But Suhida and Horikita need to be blamed for that. And the irritating thing is that Ayano-ji will be fully blamed for it. See, Ayonko-ji was right about to expel Kushida, and then Horikita intervened. And after that Ayonko-ji could tell the flow of things. He could tell that she would nominate Sakura, but that would be a mistake. Horikita does that and her position as a leader is 100% gone. It's almost a selfish decision, but if that decision comes from Sakura's friends it's different. Plus Ayonko-ji doesn't mind being hated for that. So Ayonko-ji took full responsibility, took care of the matter of disposing of the student named Airi Sakura. It also showed off how ruthless Ayonko-ji can be. He understood immediately and took action. He didn't even care about how anyone or he himself felt. He very much did what would benefit the class most. But seeing the scene of Airi getting expelled was still rough. It was heartbreaking really. I am gonna be honest, when I read that Kushida was gonna be expelled, I was like, yes. And then when I read that Airi was gonna be expelled, I was like, no. But yeah, Haruka opposed very openly. In fact, she also nominated herself, but she was a competent enough student so Ayonko-ji, Kisei, and also Sakura voted against her expulsion. Sakura didn't even have a proper farewell, goddammit. If you read the side story of Haruka it is even more heartbreaking, talking about how Sakura still has 1.5 years to impress Kyopen. Even in her last moment Sakura was only able to show Ayonkoji her changeover look, and a smile. My goodness, it almost makes me want to believe in the theory, that if Yama God comes back, then maybe Saku Goddess can too. Jokes aside, you know what it really makes me feel, though? It makes me not want to root for Horikita's class to reach Class A. I don't think I can really support them. I know everybody clowns upon Ikino's class for protecting their classmates, but they still deserve it more. Now it is almost laughable to compare Ichino's and Horikita's classes, cause although the classes are in the same shape, the leaders couldn't be more different. Ichino's chose to protect everyone regardless of their capabilities, and Horikita chose to protect people based on their capabilities. Makes one wonder if her growth as a character really made a difference or not. Anyways, let's move on to the other stuff. For example, what happened in Ikino's class? Well, the answer is as you would expect, they chose not to expel anyone, but this time there was some resistance. Resistance from the boy named Kanzaki. See, although Kanzaki voted for the expulsion of a student, I don't think he actually wanted to expel a student. I think he just wanted to see some greed, some hunger for the points for his class. And I think I understand that. I think it's sort of the feeling you get when you are in a team where you feel like you are the only one who wants to win. That nobody else is taking the game seriously except you, and being in that position you know that the others aren't in the wrong, but you also feel frustrated how nobody is taking the game as seriously as you. Kanzaki didn't harbor any animosity for his classmates, but he just is one kind of person who wants his classmates to work more seriously for the sake of getting into Class A. And that is why, Kanzaki doesn't really have somebody to blame, and he can't just pinpoint that problem and solve it. You see, cause if he had to point out a problem, it would be Ichino's. It would be wrong to call her a problem, but ultimately Ichino's is so much of a good person that other people in the class almost feel peer pressured to act goody two shoes too. And Kanzaki believes that just being like that is not good enough to reach Class A, and hence he rebelled. And it was in vain. See, if it was any other class Kanzaki would have been blamed for openly voting to expel somebody, but in Class B he was just accepted back like normal. And you know what, I kind of want Ichino's to find a better way to reach Class A without having to sacrifice anyone. Cause I realize that it would be far more impressive than any other class reaching Class A. And also the fact that Ayanokoji has something planned for her. I would like to see that, so, I feel for Kanzaki. But stick with Ichino's for now, brother. And then there is Sakyongi's class, who quickly decided to not do anything and rolled it off quickly. Then there is Ryuin's class with some interesting events happening. Sees Ryuin allowed people to freely vote, and unlike the other classes, 17 people wanted to expel a student. Especially since Ryuin hadn't given his stance. After 3 more such round of votes, only then did Ryuin talk about the direction he wanted to go in. And let's just say there were a lot of mind games. He was going around whispering in people's ears, pretending to be Jane, all sorts of things. And the votes dwindled down to just 4. And when it dwindled down to 5, there was no way to know who voted for the favor of expelling someone. See, when that happened, it meant that someone was opposing Ryuin. And that someone was Tokido. Shocking, right? How could our Tokido do that? The guy that we all knew so dearly. It wasn't like we didn't know about his very existence before this volume. But yet Tokido opposed fearlessly. Because he believed he also had other people backing him up, 4 to be exact. And to that Ryuin said, actually no you don't. Cause you see, Ryuin and Katsuragi and Shina had a game going on the side. They were the ones who had been voting for expulsion, and so Tokido was tricked into thinking that 4 people were following suit with him. When in fact he was all alone. And you know what, that's not even the most humiliating part. Tokido himself doesn't realize it, but when he asked Ishizaki, the biggest Ryuin simp, to betray Ryuin cause he had a supposed fight with him. That was humiliating. But alas, Katsuragi was there to save the day. He gave Tokido another chance by talking it out with Ryuin. It was all also puppeteer by Shina. But at the end of the day, Tokido left with a classic Team Rocket exit, saying I will be back for this. And all ended happily within. So this is how the situation is. Horikita's class was the only one that ended up expelling a student and hence gained 100 points more than the other classes. So they would become Class B next volume. Probably. I also want to talk about Ayonkoji, cause we know he took some ruthless measures this volume. But also the wise to that. See, Ayonkoji clearly has a bigger plan. He has to consider the various situations he is in. So he has to have a plan, unlike Horikita. See, I read in subreddit somewhere that the reason Horikita saved Kushida is for some kind of plan, which is bonkers to me. Horikita doesn't have a plan. She saved Kushida very much on the spur of the moment while being a simp. I would be surprised if Haruka ever cares for the class again, so their unity as a class is gone. Kushida is a fucking menace. The only friend she can have is Horikita, who for some reason simps excessively for her. Too bad for Horikita though, that Kushida still hates her. So basically the class is in a mess. And can someone please put the sword in this sociopath, in the future volumes? I don't care if it is Yagami. If Yagami ever messes with Kushida I would relish it, cause that would mean he would also have to mess with the Kushida simp, Horikita Suzune. And that is something I want to see. But back to the point, Ayonko-ji has a plan. I really want it to be a plan that Horikita cannot take credit for. I am even for it, if it is a selfish plan that involves their class getting their points taken off. See, cause there was the epilogue scene with Chabashira-sensei and Ayonko-ji, where Chabashira-sensei said that she is truly gonna work for this class to reach class A. And I think that could be a foreshadowing. More like a bad omen actually. Cause you know, ultimately Ayonko-ji does not care about reaching class A. See, he acted in this volume specifically for the benefit of the class. But he can also screw it over. But that might just be looking too much into that. But there is one thing for certain, and that's that Haruka hates the class now. I don't know how Hirata feels, but I guess he won't act as he did before with Yamaguchi. But what this has done, is basically made certain of the abolishment of the Ayonko-ji group. I wonder if Horikita will ever suffer backlash for that, but I think she would just continue to be the leader while Ayonko-ji takes the hate. I wonder about Kushida, too. She should receive more hate, but honestly, I think Horikita is more likely to stand up for Kushida than she is for Ayonko-ji. Just like she did in this exam, it would for sure be an irritating affair. Talking about the future exam though, there is the culture festival coming. Haruka isn't gonna perform in the maid cafe now, that's for sure. Plus the author left quite an interesting note in the afterwards. He said that next volume is going to have an idea that he has had for the past 2 years. Which I think means that finally, the ID card theory would come into play. The theory was introduced in volume 9 when Ayonko-ji discovered something weird about Ibuki's ID card. Finally, that might come to fruition, so I am expecting a good long-thought plan from Ayonko-ji. Plus there is also one other thing. Since Chairman Tsukiyomi is back, he called up Ayonko-ji and talked about offering him protection. But that would involve him taking a leave from the special exam, something Ayonko-ji isn't too sure about. So we will see how that goes too.